I've even in some instances worked with financial planners who specialize in a different area than me to actually help the client get through a situation. There should not be this ownership idea of a family that tends to happen out there, and I think it's not helpful.
Sure. In your report, you outline there's a case study in there about the Hatfield family business, and there's great examples in there of bringing together different professionals, to assist, and the outcome speaks for itself. When it's done right, the collaboration is, I think it's fulfilling to do, but it provides just awesome results for clients, which is the main thing.
Part 2 of our conversation with Dale Scully. Dale has been a financial professional for 23 years and a business owner for 11 years. Recently, Dale transitioned out of his financial advising business and evolved his career into business coaching. We sat down as two financial professionals, drawing upon our differing and unique experiences to discuss a formula we believe is effective for successful wealth management. How you can categorize and think about different pockets of wealth and the distinction between investment and strategic or advanced planning. If you haven't already listened to part 1, I encourage you to do so on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts. Enjoy this week's episode of It's Never About Money. So, we've kind of talked about this sort of dimensions of wealth, a way to kind of think. We've kind of gone into quite a bit of detail, which was nice, actually. I haven't done that for quite some time. I'm under time pressure usually to spit that one out, but that was good. When it comes to thinking about wealth, that's a great starting point. But then how does, I want to go on to a little bit about how we can implement a wealth management formula or a system, because both of us have kind of gone into quite a lot of detail and research into what actually makes sense for those who have complex affairs. How do you take complexity and deliver financial planning, personal financial management, wealth management in a way that's kind of cohesive and seems elegantly simple, or something like that? So why don't we just talk about the wealth management formula? And that's in our special report, obviously, Dale, and I know that that's something that you definitely followed. How shall we start?
I think a really good starting point for the wealth management formula, and this is where it really was a light bulb moment for me. To make the complex simple, I think, requires process. I'm very process-driven sort of person. So the business I had, there were processes around things. I think a process around how you engage with the client is extremely important. When we first started the advocate business, we had processes that were at the day-to-day level. So we had our CRM system, we had our our tech that we employed, and on a day-to-day basis, we'd look at the tasks. So a bit of paper would go to someone, it'd be signed off on and handed on to the next person, and then they'd do their bit and that sort of thing as well. And pretty quickly you get caught up in the weeds of that, and it becomes a little bit tiresome about, okay, well, what if this happens, and what if that person's away that day, and all that sort of thing as well. So looking at process from a real granular grassroots level can be you can get overwhelmed. They have to be addressed, but it can be a difficult place to start. So then you might revert back to the really high level of business vision, mission, purpose, that sort of thing, core values of the operation, which is all very, again, good stuff, but it's very, very high level. It doesn't necessarily inform too much of what you do on a day-to-day. Certainly the flavor of what you're about should come through in the day-to-day, but it's not going to help you too much in, when you get to work in the morning, you switch your computer on, what are you actually going to do? You need to sort of have something else. The wealth management formula, when we came across it, the exact same wealth management formula that you guys deploy, and that's in your report, it allowed us to look at processes from the client level. So that middle point, not up at the business big picture and vision and mission, which is important, as I say, and not right down in the weeds of the day-to-day, but what does the client actually experience when they're meeting with you and when they're going through a process? And just be careful, because no one necessarily likes to go through a process. If you go on, I bought a car recently, so I'll pick on car salesman, but I'm not meaning to, but you're going through a process. You're sitting in front of the salesman, and he's got his spiel, and then he takes the offer to his manager to see if he can get it across the line, and then they wheel in the finance person, and then the person for your paint protection and all that sort of thing as well. So you got to be careful, but having a process is absolutely vitally important, and having a process we found that specifically defines what a client actually experiences was as I say, the light bulb moment for us, absolute watershed moment, because that would then inform and be commensurate with the business big picture, vision and mission, up higher than in altitude to this process. But it would also then inform the day to day about the tasks, the processes, this. That's true. These documents are prepared after this meeting and that sort of thing as well. Yeah. So, as a starting point, I think it's extremely important for a business to have a process, whether it's this process or whatever else, but have a process that specifically is designed around the client experience. And it should evolve. It's part of your service offering, and it should always be looked at from the client's eyes. This is not, Dale. This is not a sales process. This is firstly not a sales process, and it is a process that is articulated to clients. And the reason that it's articulated to clients is so that they are aware and they can trust in that process, rather than there is an internal process that they're being taken through, but they're none the wiser as to the next step. That is the unnerving part of the process that you described in the car sales, the car salesman. That idea that, okay, what's next? What's going to, when are they going to? So, with this particular process, I mean, part of the reason that we embedded this into the way that we work, and we're clearly illustrating it really, really early on with clients, is to say there is nothing here that we are hiding from you. The reason that this process exists is so that we can take the complex inputs that you have as a family and process them ourselves. And so that you can see along the journey what your opt-ins are or your opt-outs are. And I think that's really, really, really important. Absolutely. And the part of the process that you refer to there, that's got your discovery meeting, your strategy meetings, and your other, and so all the meetings, the client facing. Sure. Yep. Things that the clients know they're actually going through. The point that I'd make about that is that it allowed us to bring someone through a process being very mindful of time. Everybody's busy, and particularly the business owner, just anybody, a business owner or employed, self-employed, who knows, just everybody's so busy nowadays, and time is precious. So to be succinct with your process, I think is important, but obviously to spend the amount of time that you really should and need to spend with a client to find out what they're about, to get an understanding of what their goals, objectives are, and to do that, being mindful of time, I think is a key part of that actual process. To make sure that you're being top of mind with that. And you're right, ensuring at any given point in time a client knows the next step and knows, okay, well, if I commit beyond this step, then there's this is where I'm headed. Do I need to commit, or do I want to commit? And that sort of thing, I think, is important. Yeah. So
I think, Dale, you alluded to the kind of meeting flow, the tangible meeting flow that a client would go through. But I want to take a step back and just sort of say, let's talk about the actual wealth management formula, right? The way that we kind of see the world is that the idea that wealth management is the sum part, or is equal to investment planning plus advanced planning plus relationship management. And so I really wanted to talk about this tension between investment consulting or planning and advanced planning, because I think often when, and this has been historically the case, probably not so much the case these days, thank goodness, but in the past, when a client would want to go and see an advisor, that the first thing that they think is investments. And I have a feeling that still may be somewhat similar, but in the past, the advisor would concentrate on investments quite a lot. And I think there were many different reasons why that was the case. But I really wanted to tease out the differences between, investment planning and sort of advanced planning, and how important advanced planning is to the creation of wealth and improvement of a wealth management experience.
It's a good point. And it's, you're dead right in what you say, that a lot of people had actually come to a financial advisor, not even knowing what financial advice is, because it is possibly misunderstood.
Yeah.
Not only do some people think, oh, it's just all about potentially telling me where to stick my money, what to invest in, and that sort of thing. It's very often aligned with the sale of a financial product. So there is a proportion of the industry, and this is probably to do with the evolution of financial advice and where it came from and how it's evolved over the years. But people think I'm going in and I may be sold a financial product here, and so the levels of anxiety around that are quite high. If you're sort of thinking, well, it's a bit like going in to buy a car, they're going to try and sell me the XYZ super fund that's got this return and that return, and he can pick stocks and all that, that sort of business. So having the wealth management formula that integrates the investment consulting side of things, which is making smart decisions with your money, around the advanced planning, which are those 4 or so other areas that round out a financial plan, and then having the relationship management around that as well. Once that's explained to someone, I think that is the best definition of financial advice. And even if someone's not seeking a financial advisor, just knowing that that's what a financial advisor can do or should do for you is very important, and it's a great one to get out there as well, because it's very clear, it's succinct, and it says more about what a financial planner does than the majority, I'd say, of the population even know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I find remarkable is that without actually any investment decision, given a same rate of return, you can make significant amount of capital accumulation just through some clever financial structuring and strategies. Even the idea of just having the ability to contribute a certain amount and be coached into contributing a certain amount over time with the advantage of compounding returns is an incredibly powerful strategy. And whilst investment is the final, the final placement, the idea is the amount that you're putting in is also part of the strategy, and that's not investment related necessarily. So, this idea that advanced planning can be wealth enhancement. So, maximizing our cash flows and minimizing the leakages, or wealth transfer, the idea that often with, some very successful families lose quite a bit of capital in the intergenerational transfer of wealth. And that can be as a result of a lack of communication. It can be as a result of a lack of vision on what the capital is meant to do for the family. A lack of education, so many things, but that's a really important part of the stack when it comes to wealth management. And then, of course, the protection of wealth. I mean, the protection of wealth with all the risk mitigation strategies that can be employed, where we perhaps invest in structures that are asset protected, where we, use a third-party insurance company to protect some risks that may have been even unknown to the family. And then, of course, the final one with advanced planning is this charitable giving, the notion of the ability to be able to gift in a way that is meaningful, targeted, and potentially tax effective and financially effective for the family currently and the future generations too. So advanced planning is incredibly powerful, and it surprises me to this date, that it seems to take a back seat to investment planning, because we're all used to speaking about product, financial investment product. And I think that does come from the old days of selling magic, the old days of selling financial products where you would receive a commission from those investment products. And they are super important, don't get me wrong, but I still think that, advanced planning is is a little bit of an unknown quantity, is underrated or something.
Absolutely. If you look at, the qualifications that we or that financial advisors need to have, what you get skilled up in and what you learn about is, the tax minimization strategies and how superannuation works and these sorts of things as well. You're not just sitting there studying investment markets and ups and downs. Again, very important, because you don't want to sort of stumble at the last hurdle. But if you break that wealth management formula down, it's 5 questions, and it's based, I believe, on the 5 questions that that affluent individuals have. Investment consulting is in response to someone asking the question, how do I make smart decisions with my money? I've got a pot of money here. What do I do with it? So it's investment consulting. it's maybe breaking it down into crude terms, but primarily that's one question that someone might have. The other 4 questions are involved in advanced planning, as you say. So wealth enhancement is around how do I mitigate tax and manage my cash flow planning side of things. Now, that may be top of mind for someone, not necessarily the investment side of things. And it's equally as important, arguably more important, depending on the case, than actually how you deploy your investments in the first place. Then you've got your wealth transfer, as you mentioned. So a lot of clients talk about, and a lot of people do talk about, how do I transfer wealth effectively to the next generation coming through, both now and upon death. It's not always just about estate planning. It's about, how do I transfer that wealth today to other entities or into the next generation coming through. Protecting wealth, vitally important as well. Arguably, protecting what you've got before we even look to the future is possibly, top of mind for a lot of people, because they want to make sure they lock in what they've got today. And the charitable giving side of things is something that I've found. I think we've spoken about it a bit, but probably the biggest growing area is philanthropy. A lot of people are looking at, okay, you mentioned before, when someone's filled up their core wealth bucket, they're financially free, they're taken care of, their family's taken care of. A lot of people, even before then, are looking at, okay, what can I do for the world at large? What can I do for causes I'm
passionate about?
Yeah, absolutely.
And in some ways, Dale, like when they think about what they can do for the community, they also understand that through this gifting process, they're passing on an education or a culture, something, a non-financial legacy to the next generation as well, because that capital is, once it is left the family's hands and into another structure for community giving, is no longer they no longer own it. They are taking responsibility for it, and I think there's a difference. Absolutely,
yeah. Stewarding money on someone else's behalf or for another cause, for another purpose, absolutely is. So, yeah, wealth management. As I say, just that explanation, really digging into it. It's based on 4 questions, that round out, all of, someone's wealth in. And people have generally got questions in each of them, I find, and some are of greater importance than others. But certainly, if you just came in and spoke about, right, where do I get the best return nowadays, and that sort of thing as well, that's not wealth management,
Yeah.
So, and that leads into as well, you've got these other disciplines there, the wealth enhancement side of things, it touches on tax, which is, an accountant's domain, the wealth transfer side of things. You've got estate planning, which lawyers can generally get involved in. Wealth protection, you may or may not have an insurance specialist or someone who, works in the insurance space that may help on the risk side. For you guys, how do you go dealing with those other professionals around delivering on this wealth management formula?
Well, yeah, I think, these ideas that we've talked about, investment planning and advanced planning, they can't work without relationship management. They can't work without asking the right questions of our clients, having the right meetings with our clients, the right number, and including the right people in those meetings. So as an example, the idea of client relationship management would be not only to have the parents and to have a chat about, wealth, but also invite the children in with the parents' consent, if that's what they wish to do, to educate them in the next generation on what the vision for the capital is, and how one should manage money, and how mum and dad are family stewards and are thinking about making good decisions with their capital for the benefit of their family and potentially for the benefit of the community. So educating children on the environmental, social responsibility and corporate governance considerations that can happen within an investment decision. So I think when it comes to things like, obviously in our business, we can't do everything. That's for sure. We definitely focus on our knitting. Even within financial planning, we're specialized. So when it comes to, a business owner family that has so many different needs and issues, we need to be really, really good at working and collaborating with other professionals. What has been irksome to have seen in my history in financial planning is where professionals would refer clients around with a very loose understanding of what the other professional would do. And sometimes there were kickbacks and other bits and pieces that were delivered between the professionals. So the referral wasn't based upon that professional, the receiving professional being the best at what they do or competent or specializing in that particular client. It was based upon other sort of needs. And I've often said that, with even the professionals that I work with, I like you as a person. I'd like to keep working with you, but my main objective is to make sure that my client is well looked after. And friendship aside, if I need to, if we need to change or depart, that will be my that is what I will do. Because this idea of having a handshake agreement with a friend and passing on referrals of clients, if they're not doing the right job by the client, is really irksome to me. So, and so the question then comes, how do you vet professionals? How do you work with professionals in a way where you feel like you're giving your client over to someone who is really, really competent? Well, in my mind, it's like you need to have a process for being able to do your due diligence on that individual. And you need to have ongoing communication and relationship with that particular advisor so that you can feel very, very confident. And I mean, there's nothing foolproof in the world, but you can feel very, very confident that when you refer your client to an accountant, that you've got a good working relationship, that it's not connected financially, and that you can attest to their technical competency and their ethics. And I think that's really, really important.
And just on that, so you mentioned the personal CFO in
yes,
in your report as well.
Yes.
So that's have you found situations where someone else is the lead advisor and you're coming and joining their professional network, or is it pretty much exclusively that you're the personal CFO and you're bringing in and therefore having to vet and lead the charge in terms of these other professionals that you're bringing in to assist?
Look, it's a nuanced answer I'll give you. I think a bit of both. I think I would say we tend to mostly become the personal CFO. That's because I've actually seen a lack of that coordination of professionals, because it often is the case that each professional is working in their own silo. For whatever reason, they might be disconnected from each other. They don't know each other. And maybe the ethos or the philosophy isn't the same. So for me, yes, most of the time we do end up becoming the personal CFO, but I've been delighted when there's been an advisor relationship with the client where they've taken on the lead role, and I've actually come in and played a different role within that. And I've been quite happy to do that where it's necessary. The idea is, at the end of the day, if you're working with other businesses on a client case, that whatever creates a scenario where the client is happy and that you have given them the best outcome possible, then that's what should happen. The biggest problems that I've had is where I've had various professionals not want to engage in even the first bit of conversation with me. And my point would be to talk to the client and say, look, this is what I'm trying to do, and then leave it to the client to make their decision. But often I think a client is going to look at that and say, well, why aren't you collaborating to my benefit? We're not in competition with good professionals. We should be working collaboratively with them. I've even in some instances worked with financial planners who specialize in a different area than me to actually help the client get through a situation. There should not be this ownership idea of a family that tends to happen out there. And I think it's not helpful.
For sure. In your report, you outline there's a case study in there about the Hatfield family business, and there's great examples in there of bringing together different professionals, to assist, and the outcome speaks for itself. When it's done right, the collaboration is, I think it's fulfilling to do, but it provides just awesome results for clients, which is the main thing. Just on that, and possibly, in closing, being independent, having that independence that you have, how does that assist both at the client level and also dealing with these other professionals. But I guess why does independence matter in your opinion?
Well, there's a number of reasons. This could be another podcast, to be honest, because I'm pretty passionate about it.
Yep.
But I would say it matters because to begin with, it matters in my mind. It matters that I'm able to give advice to people and know that they know that I'm not being paid by a product manufacturer to give that particular advice. They know that it may not be what they agree with, but they know that I'm doing it because I believe it is the best option for them. What happens is, for me, when I announced that we'd become independent, most of the clients that knew me said, well, I kind of felt that you were anyway, and this is the right move for you. So you're just labeling it. But there came a sense of huge sense of pride, motivation, excitement off the back of, doing something that we felt was pioneering at the time. There were very few independent financial planning firms out there. In fact, we were sought after. We still are sought after. People calling us up and saying, hey, I know you're independent. I've looked up the Profession of Independent Financial Advisors website and I found you there. That's why I found you. And it's gratifying because we had to go through a few hurdles to be able to structure ourselves up in such a way to become independent. But importantly, Dale, some of the conversations that we've had around going to US on three separate occasions within a year to go through this consulting process. Some of this stuff comes off the back of knowing that I can implement these things because I am independent in my business, that I've got the autonomy to make these decisions, the wealth management formula, the dimensions of wealth, all of these things, focusing on advanced planning rather than just having 100% of your focus on investment consulting. Well, that comes off the back of being largely autonomous. Investment planning is important, but there are all these other things that we can do as well. And we are rewarded by a simple fixed fee from the client to us. We're not hiding from it. We're not afraid of saying it. It can be a very large fee, but the reality of it is the family are paying us to give them the best advice possible. In my mind, that is the best way you can run a financial planning practice.
Fantastic, mate. And you are passionate about that. We've had conversations about it before. Your passion for being a business owner, we've spoken about as well, and also for being an advisor. For you, do you believe you're a business owner first and then a financial advisor, or are you a financial advisor first, or are the two just so intrinsically tied together that it's all part and parcel?
That's really hard to answer that one. That's a really good question. Because there's two things. As a financial advisor, the most excitement that I get is when someone calls me up and says, Joe, I'm so incredibly grateful for what you and James and Sandra have been able to do for us. And we were able to move into this particular home on time, feel comfortable with the relocation and the change. We weren't really sure before, but you've made it happen for us. I go home so happy, right? There's that aspect. So that's the financial advisory side of it, dealing with the humans and the families that we work with. Yeah. On the other side of it, it's dealing with my family, Sandra and James. Sandra's part of the family now too, even though she's not technically part of the family. She's part of the family. And James, to sit there and to say, we've built a business that we have and look at what we're doing as a business owner, it's incredibly rewarding. All of the hard work, the delayed gratification, this idea, and I know this is not an idea that is probably more historic and more vintage because the idea of the virtue of delayed gratification, I can't tell you how meaningful it is to have iteratively made mistakes and then adjusted and improved along the way to get to where we are. James and I sit there and look at it and go, wow, look, when we made that call there and we were worried because it was financially, it was a bit worrying there. We were going to make a decision that maybe, meant that maybe clients wouldn't call us for a while. And, we were backing ourselves in and the tumbleweeds did come through for a period of time, but guess what? We were right. And longer term, it paid off. And so that's the beauty of being a business owner.
Yeah, Fantastic, mate. And for the future,
For the future,
yeah. I mean, look, where are you headed now in terms of this? Is it a matter of continuing to refine? It's an evolving profession. It's an evolving industry. There's been a lot of change take place in the last few years, and there's change moving forward as well. From my observations of you guys, the fact that you've had that independence in terms of title, but also in terms of view, in terms of values. You have had that independence. You've been client-centric. That's helped, or certainly been a major factor in your success to date. Moving forward, what do you see for the for your practice, for financial planning itself? How are you going to sort of tackle the terrain ahead? Is it just to continue to push forward with that mindset that's got you here, or is there any changes that you can see that you're going to be having to deal with?
I just think at the end of the day, our clients will guide what changes we need to make in our practice. I think, to be honest, all of the processes and the system changes have not really been, hovering around us. It's been hovering around what's best for our clients. And so if there is a need to make change, it'll be off the back of that. At the moment, I think we have made an incredible amount of change. One of the things that we've done, which we've stamped very clearly, is have a niche. The idea that we work with family businesses and charitable families is something, that I think is not entirely usual. I think that's a pretty strong decision to make. I think, the idea of having this podcast as a way of being able to, educate the community and to give back is something that has been a passion play for me, and I'm loving it. Yeah,
good stuff. And the success, I guess, of the podcast and these recent endeavors has that, have things been doing what you have wanted them to do in terms of implementing these in your practice, or is it too early to tell in some instances as well? Because having a practice that evolves and that changes, is great. You've got that feedback loop going all the time as well. But has there been success come as a result of that at this point in time, or a need to change further?
Well, Dale, let's look at this particular episode. This particular episode is two colleagues and friends having a chat like we would, offline. And, we talk about all these things quite passionately and uncover some of the issues, that we see. Isn't it an amazing scenario that I can now take this recording and provide it to clients and say, these are the types of things we're thinking about. This is the way that, great financial advisors, professional financial advisors collaborate. That's what this podcast does. It's been so many times in my past where I've said, oh, wow, I've had this great conversation with a colleague, a friend, a business owner, whoever really, and thinking to myself, wouldn't it be great if I could share that information in some way? And that's the medium that I have now, and the platform that, I have. And if it's one person that listens to it and it gets value out of it, it's worth it for me.
Yeah, it's fantastic. As I say, that ability now, or that, there's a need for the understanding of what a financial advisor does, what good financial advice is, or just financial education in the inside of itself. So I think you guys are doing a great job of doing that, of making sure that is getting out there into the marketplace, which I think is extremely important at the moment for the end client, no doubt, but for the industry, for the profession itself. There's a lot of good work that still needs to be done. Clients just, need financial advice now more than ever. You could argue. Yes. So it's good to see that it's all working out for you. And that there's still a lot of passion and fuel in the tank there to keep on going with it, for sure.
Certainly is. And look, but before we end, I'd just like to thank you, Dale, for coming on today. It's been great. Like I said, we've had many conversations prior to this, and it's been good to have you on with your advice in a number of key areas. And I'm sure the community at large will be very grateful for having listened to this one. So appreciate it.
Absolutely, loved it, mate. Anytime, and appreciate the chat. Love the chat, and again, well done on your report that you've got there on your business to date, and best of luck as you move forward.
I hope that this one was enjoyable to listen to and there were some moments of value. If you have resonated in any way with the sentiments of this podcast, we would be delighted to direct you to our website, www.itsneveraboutmoney.com.au, for more free resources and education aimed at improving your capacity to make sound financial decisions for the benefit of your family. We wish you every success, however you define it.